Good morning, KBOI listeners, 670 AM, 93.1 FM. Good morning. This is Dylan Stalker, your 3.5 generation Idahoan. What is this? This is the Great Idaho Show. You know, for weeks and weeks now, you've been listening to me try to get you in touch with people that I personally have been associated to, or somebody that I think is great, or something that I think is great about Idaho. I'm a multi-generational Idahoan, and today I'm sitting in the Paul J Schneider building here at KBOI. It is an honor. We have a very special guest today, but before we get there, you know, this is very important. You know, these things, these radio programs, they don't come for free. While it is me paying for it, I should let you know that Old Arms of Idaho, we are talking about your Western firearms and military specialist for collectibles. This is about history, ladies and gentlemen, the history business. If you have something that you would think that you would take to the Antique Roadshow, bring it to Old Arms of Idaho, give us a call. We will help you with the information, and we will help it be registered in the history banks with somebody else if you would like, or tell you all about it. And now I'm so excited sitting here in the Paul J Schneider building down here at 14th and Bannock in Boise, Idaho, a historical location. I am welcoming our guest, Paul J Schneider. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you too. You're in your saddle.
I am.
It's
I'm in my old chair.
He's in his old chair. He's
Yep.
Do we got to oil that up a little bit? Is it dry, or you're still just like it was yesterday?
Just like yesterday.
Man, welcome to the Great Idaho Show. Paul, I really think that you're great about Idaho. I moved here to Boise, that is, in 2001. And from the very moment I turned on the call letters KBOI 670 AM 93.1 FM now, that's new. That's new to you, I think.
New to me.
That's new to you. Those are some new ones. But, you know, I've been listening to you in the morning with Chris, especially. And, of course, you have just a fantastic history with a lifetime career in Boise and Idaho and sports and BSU. And there's so much to talk about. But I've got a first question for you that I'm really working hard to try to ask. Paul, you've been in Idaho for more than a minute. What do you love about Idaho?
You know, well, first of all, the climate. I love the climate. Moved out here from Illinois when I was 13. Got to have 4 seasons. We got 4 seasons here.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful state, and it's not overpopulated, although it's getting crowded. I just like the feel of the place of Idaho. Just returned from Yellowstone National Park.
Yeah.
You know, we have things like that, very close, drivable, and I just like the feel of the state of Idaho.
Boy, you can just get about anything that you want with about an hour's drive of Boise, right? You can get the desert, you can get your lakes, you can get your mountains. In the wintertime, you can not have snow in the beautiful town of Boise, Idaho, and go drive right into it in about 45 minutes if you need to.
Yep, 26 miles away.
Wow, 13 years old, moving to Boise. Tell us a little bit.
Well, actually, I moved to Twin Falls when I was 13. Went to Twin Falls High School along with Chris. And
oh, well, that's cool.
yeah, everybody, Mike Prater, I mean, all these guys are from Twin Falls High School. Went to the University of Idaho. Boise State was a junior college
Sure.
back in those days. So I went to Idaho, graduated from Idaho, went to Twin Falls for a year, came up here, and I've been here ever since.
So Twin Falls, Idaho, I was lucky enough to live in Hagerman, Idaho.
Yep.
You know, tell us a little bit about the old roundabouts there in Twin Falls, having some time there. Did you get out much?
Oh, yeah. I got out a lot in Twin Falls. You know, we were in the gang fights on the golf course in Jerome. And, you know, we did.
Paul Schneider in the gang fights of Twin Falls, Idaho. That's a heck of a story there.
We did all the Twin Falls and Jerome kind of stuff back in the day.
That's kind of funny. When I grew up, there was the cruise in Twin Falls right there on Blue Lakes Boulevard. Was there a cruise happening in your day?
There was a cruise. It wasn't on Blue Lakes Boulevard, though. It was on Main Street.
Of course.
We'd cruise from one 5 points to the other 5 points. And I worked at one of them in the Albertson store. And we'd cruise Maine. And gas was like 14 cents a gallon. In those days. So
that's
it was
amazing.
Cheap.
It needed to be 14 cents a gallon when your car gets about 4 miles per gallon just to haul that 1,000,000 pounds of steel around, of American beautiful steel in Twin Falls, Idaho.
Well, and then, back in the day, you weren't making any money. So it had to be 14 cents.
Well, so here's the thing, Paul. I am in love with radio. I think radio is one of the greatest legacy media formats that ever lived. It just happens raw and real, and without all of the flashy television stuff. It's just voices. It's powerful. But, we could talk a lot about radio for you, but you are also a lot to do with Idaho and what's going on here. And this is about your career. Like, what's your first job? Was it radio?
My first, no. I mean, I roofed houses. I did a lot of stuff. I built silos. I built water irrigation systems. I did all kinds of stuff before I got into radio. My 7th grade prediction, I guess you'd say, in the 7th grade yearbook said I would be a sportscaster.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the 7th grade.
I'm sure you posted a picture, but that's amazing.
And my best friend, a guy named Dennis Bacon, they said he would pitch in the World Series.
Yeah.
One of us made our dream come true.
Dennis, if you're out there listening, Paul J is giving you one in the ribs right now for the dreams of what happens when we're kids.
Didn't make the World Series.
But you certainly made it as a sportscaster. What is that, 28 years? 28 years, voice of the Broncos before Mr. Beeler here? Or 35 years?
I did it for 35 years being the voice of the Broncos, yeah. I mean, I've done everything. I've broadcast the horse races.
Yep.
I did that here. Track meets, basketball games. If somebody played it and wanted it to be talked about, I was the guy.
It's not funny how you get known for something, but ultimately there's so many layers underneath what you got known for. That's because you're willing to do it. There's some people believe, high school sports, I don't want to do that. But, if you're just open, positive, happy, and willing to get involved, that's how you become the voice of something like that.
Yep, that's true.
And you've certainly made a great way with that. I mean, your name's up in the old press box there at the old BSU Stadium, I believe.
Yep.
That had to be a pretty interesting moment after all them years.
Yeah, it was. It was nice to be recognized, and I'm in the Hall of Fame with one of my great things is Kellen Moore and I went in the Hall of Fame the same year.
Oh, wow.
Arm in arm.
That is pretty cool. That's
one of us was
memorable
a good
moment. Yeah. So Kellen, he's a great coach, but you're the better athlete, right?
Wrong.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you can't recognize the voice, that's because you're new here and you're hearing the voice of Paul J Schneider. Paul J Schneider of KBOI, most recently, and many things, the voice of the Broncos and many things to do with radio and sports, and absolutely Idaho radio. You have to put a very big general label on that because, in your time, it's transitioned a few hands, this microphone you're speaking into.
Yeah, in those days, and radio was so much different than it is today. I mean, we're in a big building with not many people.
Yeah.
Back when I worked there were 80 people in this building at any point in time, and everything, all the programming was live.
Sure.
And it was local.
Yeah.
And nowadays, we're kind of running into a little problem with radio, with television,
Digital.
Local news, newspapers, magazines. I mean, all the staffing is being taken away, and we got to keep it.
Well, I think that comes down
That's
to
why what you're doing is so good.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you need to keep this medium alive.
Well, we keep the medium alive and pay attention who you're talking to, right? There's a lot of voices out there, and some of them have motivations for other things than just pure community. Radio is community. I believe it. Paul J., you are community. You are radio. I appreciate that. This is Dylan Stalker, your 3.5 generation Idahoan. I'm a radio infant. I love radio. I'm here trying. I'm interviewing one of the greats, a person that could maintain the microphone for 24 hours straight, probably, and I'd be dead after this 40-minute show that you have here. And I'm honored. I'm honored to be speaking to Paul J. Schneider in his building. This is the Great Idaho Show, thegreatidahoshow.com. This is KBOI, ladies and gentlemen, 670 AM, 93.1 FM. This is the largest radio voice in all of Idaho, but we're reaching into Oregon and Nevada and all over the place, and I hope you all are listening. Let's stay tuned to this next segment where all I have to do is pass the phone or pass the mic to Paul J. Schneider. Okay, welcome back, KBOI. KBOI, 670 AM, 93.1 FM. We are sitting with a radio voice, a man of community, Paul J. Schneider, in the Paul J. Schneider building. Paul is sitting in his seat. You know what you just told me that I didn't know, Paul, in this last segment? You and Chris had known each other before all this adventure began.
Well, that's not exactly true. I'm considerably older than Chris, but yeah, I knew Chris when he worked at other stations.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Before.
Yeah, so we're coming from the same cloth.
Sure.
Right? Twin Falls, if you want real Idaho, Twin Falls, by my definitions, we all have our definitions of Idaho, but Twin Falls isn't there for technology. They aren't there because they've got, the next space station or anything like that. This is a pretty well agricultural community of people just getting along, getting together, trying to take care of each other. And I really, when I moved here to Boise, I really found a connection to that. There's something really natural between the communication between you and Mr. Walton. I love it. I miss it.
Yeah, we do have very, very similar backgrounds, and we fit like a glove, work together very well.
Yeah, and I get a sense of true intelligence, and there is something about filling the air with radio, and then there's filling the air with some intelligence and some actual, community motivation and some real stuff. And I really appreciated you both. I wish nearly that there was like an anniversary edition of you and Chris sitting in these chairs, warming them up and heating up the mics again.
A couple of 3 times a year we get together.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yep. So, we just heard Ron O'Brien retire. I was listening live when Nate had a conversation with Mr. O'Brien after his 20 plus years doing traffic and things like that, because I still listen every day. I'm an addict. I love the radio. But, one of those comments was, it's hard to leave. How's it been for you?
Well, it is hard to leave. And I finally walked out the door at 76.
Yeah.
So, I was 76 years old. And before I retired, had some health problems, which helped push me out the door. But yeah, it's hard to leave. It really is. A lot of people say, well, as soon as I hit 65 years old, I'm gone.
Yeah.
No, it's never like that.
It's when you truly love it, you're with it forever.
Yeah.
And
and you never work a day in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you've worked. Or
so they'd have you believe, right?
You've never worked, have you?
Never.
Never, not once.
Never.
It's funny. There's so many things that's hard to leave. The sports. How are you in the sports game? Are you still connected pretty bit?
Yeah, I go to all the Boise State games. Being from the Midwest, I'm an avid Chicago Cubs fan.
Okay.
And they're in first place.
They've had some good recent stuff. They were
won the World Series a couple of years ago for the first time in 111 years.
Nobody's counting. That's
Nobody's counting. But they're doing very well this year.
Go Cubs.
Yeah.
Interesting. Of course, it's hard to know everything about somebody. I try to do a professional job. I try to learn from who I'm heard, you, and know who we're talking to a little bit. But you were a person that was a voter. What would you call that for the Heisman Trophy?
Still am.
Still am.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. What a year, my friend.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know if that's controversy.
Genty.
Genty?
Yeah. See, Ashton Genty and I have some going. We both have towns in Idaho named after us.
Oh, wow. He does too, huh?
Yeah, Ashton.
We got to get him the keys to the city.
I was in Ashton, Idaho a couple of days ago coming back from Yellowstone.
Well,
and then Paul, Idaho, of course, down by Twin.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, that radio career's had to have you touch base in all of those towns.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but you know, I guess a lot of them are named after you and the people that you vote for, you know.
That's what I hear.
But this is so, going back to radio, I'm going to certainly try to highlight some of the funner moments of your radio career, because it's my passion. And if I were just talking to you like we were having dinner, I'm like, hey, man, you know, what's that story about your first break in radio? The first time that you were able to speak into the mic and let the world be what it was.
I was at the University of Idaho, and we all kind of booth announced and did stuff for the TV stations up there. And we decided, me and a couple of my friends in the radio TV department up there, that we would start telecasting baseball games. The University of Idaho had a baseball team then. The field was right below the radio TV thing. So we'd push those big old heavy cameras out there.
Sure. And
broadcast the games. It was great. And the first time I really felt like I was hot stuff was after I graduated from Idaho. I went to Twin Falls.
Yeah.
And was broadcasting. I went to school down there. A lot of people knew me still, and that was a big, low-paying thrill for me right then.
But isn't that interesting? It was just kind of like, yeah, go ahead and give it a shot. And you, I mean, yeah, the world was your oyster at that point.
Yeah, it
right?
was.
You could have went and approached it any way that you could have imagined.
And then a guy named Ben Goddard, who worked at Channel 7, said, you know, you want to do sports? Channel 2 guy is going to run for mayor, and they need sports. I know they need a sports guy, and they have an opening in news. And so I came up here after 7 months in Twin Falls, and they asked me, you know, can you film? Can you run a camera? I'm going, yeah.
Couldn't just do any fake of it till you make it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't do any of it, but learned quickly, and God, it was at TV for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then they made me an anchor man. I hated that.
Paul J. Schneider, the anchor.
I hated that because you never left the station, never went outside, never covered stories. I mean, you had one leg pegged to your desk, so I came over to radio so I could keep doing play-by-play.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. I've talked to as many people as I can and respect and love to hear about and BS, because it's about radio. For me, ladies and gentlemen, I love Idaho, but I love radio, and that's why we're here. And I love that Paul J. Schneider is here. But one thing that I heard you just mention is I've known some others that had their TV break.
Mm-hmm.
And today you would think that TV is like, oh, let's do TV. But every radio professional that I knew loved radio said the same thing. TV just didn't cut it, did it?
Well, not anchoring. I didn't like anchoring.
Well, I guess what's the anchor mean? Like you're stuck. You're to a chain. I mean, that's an image thing.
Not only do you anchor the news, but you anchor the newsroom.
Yeah.
And you're there.
Yeah, you just got, that's it. You're present, omnipresent at the newsroom.
Sure.
So a lot of people don't know, because there's a huge property in Garden City, Idaho, right there, the horse track. And what, honestly, an amazing time for me. Like just to voice horse racing. How's that going? I mean, I shouldn't ask how that's going, but man, you've got to be missing something there. That was fun.
Yeah, that was really fun. That I got into that. I knew the horse race people. I'd never been to a horse race before. Lebois Park opened and went to them and really liked them. And I was in TV at that time, so I started calling the races into my camera. I'd call the feature race on Wednesday night and then run it on the air.
And you'd have your own camera, self-produced, self-capture, the whole thing, right?
And then, so the people at Lebois Park went, "Is better than the guy we got doing it."
Yeah. So well, there's a little money involved in the old horse track, so
yeah. So they said the next year, second year, you want to come do those races?
Yeah.
And he said, "We'll give you a tape of the race to run on." And so, I started doing. I really liked it, doing the horse races.
Yeah, it's a different call, though, right? I mean, sport versus horse racing.
Yep.
And it's all, there's one horse 1 foot behind the other one, and that 1 foot description over the television and radio, man, that's an exciting voice right there.
Yeah. It's a nose, a head, and a neck.
Yeah, a nose and a head and a neck. Yeah, there's no foot. That's right. Hey, I told y'all I'm learning. I love radio, but I could crash the plane at any moment. You're just sitting here with Paul J. It's okay. We've got a radio great sitting here with us today. The horse races. It is. I do have to comment. Idaho and Boise, the whole thing. It's sad to see that empty, right?
Yeah, it is, and it'll never come back. And it's not just here. Small, medium-sized tracks around the country are going away.
They're just folding up.
Yeah, pretty soon there'll be 8, 10 tracks. That'll be it.
Yeah, what are they going to do? Turn it into a city like ATV park or something like that? But that's a track soccer. That's owned by the people.
Yeah, it's a soccer. They're going to build a soccer stadium.
Okay.
There.
Yeah, I haven't paid too much attention because I almost shy away from it, wishing that there was just horses and Paul J sitting in there, But, this is coming out of our second segment. This is KBOI 670 AM, 93.1 FM. Y'all have been so gracious to turn your radios on this morning, starting at 7 a.m. to listen to The Great Idaho Show. The Great Idaho Show where me, Dylan Stalker, I'm a multi-generational Idahoan. I'm a 3.5 generation Idahoan. And I'm sitting here with Paul J Schneider in the Paul J Schneider studio, with Paul sitting at his seat that he had done for so many years. And if you know who were your voice, that's who we're talking to. You can hear this interview, if you didn't catch the whole thing, coming up after it launches at thegreatidahoshow.com. And thank you all for listening this morning. Okay, good morning. Welcome back. This is Dylan Stalker, your 3.5 generation Idahoan, a real actual multi-generational Idahoan that has lived all over the place and is utterly in love with radio. That's why I'm on it. And I'm utterly in love with Idaho. And I can't think of any person that emulates radio in Idaho more than Paul J Schneider, who I'm sitting with in the Paul J Schneider studio. Thank you. Welcome back, Paul.
Good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time with us today. There's so much that we can talk about today that's just your career in, Idaho and the many different things that have happened, but a little bit about you, Paul. What do you think people don't see about your life on the air? What did people not see, about what you're doing on the radio? What do they not know?
I think they know quite a bit about me. I think they, back when we were on the air, one of the big selling points was we were a family-oriented radio station.
Yeah.
Everybody knew my wife, Tam.
Yeah.
They all knew my daughter, Natalie, my son, Scott, and Jeff. I mean, we talked about them on the air, and they came with me when we made appearances, which we made a lot of in those days. Doesn't happen much anymore, but we were out in the community over and over. So I feel that the people know quite a bit about me. They know about my personal life. I tried to keep politics out of the show as much as possible because if you get too political, you really divide your audience
Absolutely.
up. And only people who agree with you on almost everything will listen to your show.
Yeah.
And, the other people could be a smaller percentage. We used to say in radio that every year you'd piss off 10% of your listeners. So every year, allegedly, you'd lose 10% of your
Geez,
listeners.
after 10 years, you're done.
Exactly. So it's obviously not true.
Yeah.
But the overall feel of it is true because people are going to get mad at you, whatever you say. Well, I don't know. I'll listen to KIDO.
Yeah.
I'll do this. I'll do that.
Sure.
But we kept a large audience. We got up to number 3 in the nation. We kept a larger audience throughout my times with Lon Dunn and all of the others, Chris, all the other co-hosts we had here in the morning. And the reason is because we were so community involved and so family involved that people know everything about us.
And so what you just described is what I truthfully love. If you were just a real person willing to share about you and willing to go participate in the community, and you talked about that political thing. We're sitting here on a couple of mics that have marquees that say News Talk, KBOI, right? And sadly today, news is politics, and that is such a terrible, divisive thing. And what you're describing is there's so much in the middle that we can all agree to.
Yeah.
Right?
Actually, good things happen sometimes.
Yeah.
We need to talk about them.
We should be talking about that. That's truthfully what my
And we
motivation
did.
is.
Yeah.
And you've got so many things, and I can just think of it's just sharing life. It is social media before it actually existed. And
True.
people had the ability to go right in their car. It was already connected. Just turn it on to 670 AM, 93.1 FM. Don't worry, you're listening to it right now. And this is community.
Sure.
Community-wise, you're listening to me, Dylan Stalker, a self-described multi-generational Idahoan, and Paul Schneider, and we're just BSing.
Yep.
There's not a script, folks.
No, never.
Old school radio, right?
I remember we were a full service station for years and years and years. Played music, did news, traffic, weather, sports, everything in an hour time, and then do it over again. But, I mean, when we went from full service to news talk, we're going, what you were saying off the air a few minutes ago.
Sure.
How in the world am I going to get to the bottom of the hour? What am I going to talk about?
Yeah.
What in the world? And Debbie Corson was with us at the time. Ken Bass. It was Debbie Corson, Ken Bass, and me. And I tell you what, it was a struggle.
Well,
At first, because we didn't know what we were doing.
Well,
and we
geez.
learned on the job.
You're describing me this very second
Yeah.
sitting next to a professional. We have in this show, the Great Idaho Show, we have an 11-minute, 12-minute, 14-minute, and 11-minute segment.
Right.
Right? I come in here every day nervous as all get out because ultimately my goal is to cherish somebody or something that I think is special about Idaho. Today I'm lucky I get to cherish. Look, I'm even nervous that I'm throwing my words out there. I get to cherish something that is what I love about not only Idaho, but radio too. And what you just described, you got music and all the other stuff that you could be doing. And then just, hey, here's a couple of mics. What's going on out there, Paul J? What's going on?
Yeah. Tell you what, we got a big traffic jam on Chinden Boulevard. Don't go that way. And, so it was fun. And we did get a lot of information out when we were full service.
Yeah.
But once you shut off the record player, wow.
Yeah, and you got, what did you say? I mean, Was that literal 80 employees running around this building? I mean, you've got somebody.
Salespeople. We had guys work weekends, guys worked overnights, guys that, it's hard to get in. I applaud you because it's hard to get into radio these days. I mean, used to be you worked weekends, you worked overnights,
Yeah.
you did anything you could do if you wanted to get into radio, so you had experience.
Sure.
So you didn't turn on the mic and go,
Yeah, absolutely.
You had to have experience. That's not really available now.
So that's a tough thing for me because I personally believe in the apprenticeship,
Yeah.
right? Chris Christopherson.
Yep.
Chris Christopherson was sweeping the floors of the studio before he became one of the greatest songwriters
Sure.
that ever lived. That's an apprenticeship. It really doesn't exist for radio anymore. And there is some pressures, of funding for public radio, which is a lot of times college, and your college radio station, and a lot of funding that comes from that. Radio is under tremendous pressure right now. What have you heard, or what things that have come to your mind?
Well, I think that I was extremely fortunate to be in radio when I was.
Yeah.
The golden age of radio was probably before me. I guess it would be in the 30s, 40s, 50s, when, you had bands.
Yeah.
Orchestras, stations had orchestras.
In this room right here with us. Yeah.
And so they'd have a studio for the orchestra. And then, when I got here, it was rock and roll music and kids were starting to listen. And radio became kind of shifted down to the younger people and opened up the new horizons with rock and roll. And you got the ability to do, and this was one of the big things for radio, to do stuff outside the studio.
Yeah.
When I first started in radio, you were pretty much hamstrung to what was in the studio. There were no cell phones. There was, if you did a report from somewhere, you were in a phone booth close to what was happening.
Yeah, I can imagine that. You're like Superman, hanging on to a cord, just calling it from binoculars or something.
People are out there going, what's a phone booth? Yeah. But, so the ability with your iPhone 16 or whatever to go out and have good quality from the house that's on fire as it's happening.
Yeah.
That's tremendous. That wasn't there when we started. But, we'd have people from the neighborhoods calling us in, and we'd talk to them. What are you seeing? So it was pretty good. And that helped you relate to the community. So, we had great music in those days. If America had a hit record, they'd be in the studio when they came by.
Yeah.
Or Paul Revere and the Raiders locally.
Yeah, right up there, off off the freeway. That's his house up there.
Yeah.
He lived here.
So yeah, he lived here, and everybody knew Mark Lindsay, and it was a great time. And we interviewed everybody.
And that's you were an open source connection to the rest of everybody. Newspapers delayed.
Yep.
And radio. Just turn the dial and boop, there it is.
Instant.
And you can you could be washing the dishes or turning a wrench on your engine or doing anything. You can't read and turn a wrench at the same time.
That's exactly right.
It's such a powerful medium. And deep down, Paul, I feel like radio is at risk a little bit, but ultimately I don't know. I think it's going to stand the test of time. What you and I are doing right here feels really good. And don't ever forget this, ladies and gentlemen. Radio is community. Anybody that's willing to be on radio today is just quite simply trying to draw a 10-mile, 20-mile, 50-mile circle around that area and just professionally, if they're a professional, Paul J Schneider, professional, ladies and gentlemen. They're just trying to share with you what's going on.
One of the coolest things that ever happened, shortly after we went 50,000 watts.
That's a big one right there.
Yeah, we were at 950 on the AM dial when I came here. And then we moved to 670 and went to 50,000 watts. I went to Hawaii one time, and in Honolulu on the beach, I was listening to KBOI.
No kidding. Mm-hmm. There's like protractors out there and triangulation and bouncing signals off the clouds and making it all the way out to Honolulu, Hawaii. That's pretty awesome.
We used to just blast west. We were shielded to the east, and we used to just blast west. And then Charlie Wilson sold a what do you call it, deflector, whatever,
a transmitter, or
so we did, our pattern did not go into Southern California anymore because there was a station, one of the stations in San Francisco, I think. We were interfering with their signal going south into Southern California.
Oh, you were scrabbling them up.
So we blocked our signal from going to Southern Cal, and that took Hawaii out.
Geez, in today's world, they'd be like, "Yeah, take them over. We'll take what we can get." But back then, there was a level of community respect, consideration.
Let's not say they didn't pay to have us do that.
Well, that's true. There is business in radio, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we're here again. This is Dylan Stalker, your 3.5 generation Idaho. The difference between me and Paul J and KBOI is I don't get paid for this. I just love Idaho. I love Paul J Schneider. I'm so thankful for him to be here today. This simple little 40-minute interview of a radio great here in Idaho will become available the day it launches at Sunday at 7 a.m. Coming soon. You'll hear the promos right here on KBOI, 670 AM, 93.1 FM. But ultimately, we hope you listen at 7 a.m. every Sunday. And if you miss it, you're going to go to thegreatidahoshow.com. Welcome back, KBOI listeners. Again, always, why? 670 AM, 93.1 FM. I always say the signs because I love radio, but ultimately, they got that KBOI app out there. You could be in Europe right now. We just got back from this last segment where Paul J. Schneider was talking about picking up the old signal out in Honolulu, Hawaii in his day when 50,000 watts, which still today, that's a lot. That's a big deal.
Yeah, Bill Fromm would be an interesting guy for you to talk to. Our old engineer, we used to get postcards and letters from Finland and Norway and all of those places go wrap around signals. Interesting.
Isn't that one of the greatest rewards of what you're doing?
Oh, yeah.
I'm a junior. I'm an infant. I'm just very naive. I love the radio. I love these microphones. And professionally, you never wonder if anybody's listening. Of course you're listening because you're listening to 670 AM, 93.1 FM right now, and maybe on the KBOI app. But as an infant in this, I wonder. And then you're sitting there, Paul J Schneider. You're like, all of a sudden, you get a postcard from Norway.
Yep, exactly.
It's got to be a pretty big reward.
And they say what song you were playing and what time it was, and then we'd give him the Fromm, and he'd check the logs, and it was great.
Just to see if it was like you check the logs, be like, oh yeah, that's really happened.
Was us, yeah.
That is like, we were talking about Palantir because you know a little something about Palantir.
Yeah, my daughter works for
Your daughter works for them. They are all in the data and collecting every little thing that you do. And back then, you had to get a postcard to verify that you were doing some amazing things on the radio.
Exactly.
And people care. People are listening.
It was fun in the old days. We used to have a lot of people come in and talk to us. Harmon Killebrew was here, one of my favorite stories.
Ooh, that's a cool one.
Yeah, Harmon Killebrew, Hall of Fame baseball player.
Sure.
And we finished it up, and he goes, "How you doing?" I'm going, "I'm okay. How are you?" He's going, "I'm okay." He said, "What interview don't you have? What interview are you missing? What interview do you want to do that you haven't done.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'd like to interview a president, or a past president or something. And he goes, who? I said, I'd like to interview Richard Nixon because of the Watergate thing.
That's big news. That's the biggest news ever. Yeah.
Nobody has talked to him since Watergate. I'd like to do that interview. And Killebrew goes, I can set that up for you.
And what, your toes started tingling and you're like, oh.
I went, you're kidding. He goes, no. He goes, got his phone number. I'm going, no, you don't. He says, no, I do. I got his phone number. I'll set it up. I'm going, sure. I'm going to need
sure,
you, right?
Yeah.
And he called me the next day and he goes, when do you want to do this? I'm going, do what? He goes, when do you want to interview Nixon? I'm going, you set it up? He goes, I can get it set up. Next Tuesday's his birthday. I said, how about we interview him next Tuesday? And he goes, okay. And it ended up being Super Bowl week.
Oh, my gosh.
And so Killebrew calls me back and he goes, okay, here's the deal. I got it set up, but you can't talk politics, which is right up my alley anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going, okay. So he predicted the Super Bowl. We talked about his birthday. We talked about him in California, what he's doing, how people are reacting. And it was a great interview. Won all kinds of awards. They ran it in New York. It was great.
I would love
people
to
say, what's the best interview you've ever done? That was it.
I would love to hear that interview, Paul J. Is that posted somewhere where I could go hear it?
I don't think so.
As a fledgling little radio boy here in the great Paul J studio?
I have a copy of it at home.
Man, that would be great.
On reel to reel.
That reel to reel. We're talking about some technology there.
Woolen sack. Can you say woolen sack?
For all the radio folks that know radio, you're calling out a bunch of technologies.
Yep.
I could probably sit here for the next 6 minutes and listen to you say all of those at reel to reel and woolen sack.
Hey, I'm so old, man. I remember transcriptions where you used to make if you wanted to, we're recording the show.
Yeah.
We'd put it on a record. Scott would be recording it on a record.
Oh, so you'd be that would be recording straight from mic to vinyl?
And then you would play it.
Was there a bunch of gnomes on this little machine punching out on the vinyl or something like that? I mean.
And they played inside out, right? Isn't that right? I think transcriptions. Okay. Instead of playing outside in like a record, they play inside out. That's how old I am.
Oh, goodness.
I remember line recorders. Stop it.
I'm sitting in
That's
what I would
tape, everybody.
You always have a radio professional that you get to know, right? If you've been in Boise for any time whatsoever, or Idaho for that matter, you know Paul J. Schneider. I'm also sitting here with Scott Cruz. And Scott Cruz in this studio right now.
Best engineer in the history of radio.
There it is. I'm thankful.
That's his website.
Oh, that we're creating entire websites, or it's already existed. I'm just playing catch up here to two good old friends sitting here in the radio studio. But ladies and gentlemen, that is radio. Mm-hmm. It just happens as it happens. And there's good days and there are bad days. But with Paul J, there is mostly good days and a lot of great opportunities and a lot of good fun, a lot of good stories. Richard Nixon after the whole Watergate thing, that's a pretty good one. We were the one. So goodness, Paul, how into the Idaho aspect, you've seen so much go on here in Idaho, and you've seen so much media transpire here in Idaho. Gosh, what is going through your mind these days?
Well, I think it's a shame that people don't rely on, as I mentioned earlier in the show, they don't rely on sources, radio, TV news, newspapers, magazines. Now everything is on the internet.
Check the source, folks.
Bingo.
Know your source.
You just said it. That is so important. So important. I mean, you can go on the internet at any point in time. This is all the preaching I'm going to do, and find somebody who agrees with you.
Yeah.
And we call it going down a rabbit hole.
Sure.
And just only go down that rabbit hole. Don't listen to anybody else's point of view.
Yeah.
Just those who agree with you. It's not the way to do it. You need to spread out. Say, oh, that makes sense. You know.
But what's the source, right?
Exactly.
You know, what
You
is
gotta
the
find-
utter source of this information?
Where did he get his information?
And did that person put that up? Because today it's about clicks and hits, Paul.
That's exactly right.
It's really sad. And honestly, I get like, I'm trying. So yes, you'll see me putting out on the X and Facebook and YouTube. And it's like, you know, I'm doing it too.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, of
hoping my
course,
source is
and
pretty
I do
good.
it too, and
right?
everybody does it. I mean, the ones I hate are the guys on X that will have a picture of Taylor Swift singing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Here's
you're
a
just
picture of Taylor Swift. What do you see?
what are we looking at?
And
Why?
And so you open up the thread and you're looking, and everybody's going, a picture of Taylor Swift.
And there's 20,000 views and 14 million hits on it.
people are
Like, what the
looking
heck
and-
is
and,
this?
Well, somebody must notice something.
It
And there's
seems empty.
Never anything there.
You're listening to 670 AM, 93.1 FM. This is radio. Do not ever forget it. The people that put real radio on are real. They're trying to provide a service every day that is connected to a local community. And it's not an easy job, folks. The mics just turn on and it just rolls, and that's the way that it is. And you have great people like Paul J Schneider who are willing to share their day in a life on the radio.
I was in radio for 60 years, and never did I have a boss tell me what to say. Ever. Never.
Right. And isn't that such a great point? I believe
yeah.
that there is media saying, you're not allowed to say that.
Yeah.
I think you
And some people get fired for saying things
Yeah.
that maybe they shouldn't have said. Maybe they should have thought it through. But I've never had a guy say, no, you can't be for that, or you have to be against that. Never happened.
And
People think, well, your boss tells you what to say. You're just taking a KBOI point of view. There is no point of view.
No, you're just up there.
Yeah.
I believe in the genuine nature of your great service to radio, Paul J. Schneider. I want to give you my greatest thanks as a radio lover, what I'm doing here today, and hoping to emulate and be a professional like you. This is Dylan Stalker, the 3.5 generation Idahoan, right here on 670 AM, 93.1 FM. 50,000 watts, folks. You're hearing this in Nevada, Oregon, all over the place. Thank you for listening to The Great Idaho Show, thegreatidahoshow.com.